Good afternoon, everybody. It's David Schlotthauer here with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for Thursday, August the 7th, 2025. In this tropical weather update, we are keeping an eye on the deep tropics for significant tropical activity that is going to increase over the next week off of Africa as we go into a very favorable African wave train environment. So in this video, will we get a tropical storm or hurricane threatening the U.S. as we do have a growing threat? In today's video, we will be breaking down all those details. Now, if you haven't been here before and you do find these tropical weather outlook and discussions very detailed, informative, helpful, and life-saving, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, folks. It really helps out a lot. Hit that bell notification icon as I do daily tropical weather outlook and discussions, including live streaming coverage on tropical storms or hurricanes as they make landfall in the United States or the Caribbean. Hit that like button and share this video with your family and friends on social media. So with that being said, let's take a look now at our latest GOES 19 True Color Visible Satellite Imagery provided by Dr. Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com. And what we have right now is there are gradual changes happening out there in the tropical Atlantic. While things look nice and quiet out here in the Caribbean, the southwestern Atlantic, and the Gulf, we are watching and monitoring several tropical waves that will be coming off of Africa over the next 1 to 3 weeks. And some of these could become tropical storms, if not hurricanes, as they move generally off towards the west and the west-northwest in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And as you can see here, there are 2 tropical waves that are lining up out there in the tropical African region. We have our wave right now over Central Africa. That's the one that most models indicate that will develop into a tropical depression, tropical storm, or if not worse, a hurricane, with another tropical wave right now over Ethiopia that also has my attention down the line. We are going to see a lot of these lining up out here in the African continent over the next 1 to 2 weeks. So with that being said, let's take a look now at our Caribbean basin here on the GFS model for today. And this is over the next 4 days. So the areas that are included in this map are the Gulf, as well as the entire Caribbean over here, and of course our southwestern Atlantic basin, where a lot of people live in the southeast that are watching this video, because this is going to apply for the rest of the video today with our second tropical wave that is going to be coming off of Africa that is posing a big growing threat. So this is for Monday morning, 4 days out on the 11th of August, and what we have here is a couple of areas of interest. First of all, we have 96L up here that the GFS still indicates that it is going to attempt to develop a closed circulation. And then we have another area of interest that the GFS cannot help but keep into the forecast here throughout the Caribbean. This is a very strong trade wind max with winds that are in the 30s to 20 to 30 mile an hour range to the north of that wave pocket. But what's coming on beyond this is going to be a bit more significant. So as we go all the way out to day 5 here for the Caribbean, Gulf, and southwestern sector, there's our system here on the GFS. It is strengthening a little bit more, but you can see our Caribbean system not too concerning. And as we go beyond that all the way out to day 6, this is day 6, then our GFS model indicates that 96L is going to strengthen pretty quickly here with winds that are about tropical storm force. And this is in miles per hour. So you can see there clearly 50 mile an hour winds, with winds here on the order of about 20 miles an hour with any wave that does try to develop. In fact, it's actually over here, very anemic looking in the northwestern Caribbean. So still watching that a little closely, but what comes behind this will actually cause a bit more of a growing threat. So day 7 here by Thursday morning, August the 14th, you can see there is our disturbance right there moving through the Yucatan Channel while keeping an eye on 96L. That's close to Bermuda. Bermuda's right here, getting those outer winds from the northeast at about 20 miles an hour, despite a 70 to even 75 mile an hour tropical storm there. That moves out of frame by the time we go out to day 8. And then this is day 9 right in here. Moves out of frame, 96L. followed by another area of interest. So we have that we're watching in the far western Gulf. I don't think it's going to develop. There's like a 1% chance of that forming. And of course, right here towards the northeastern portion there, far northeastern Caribbean into the southwestern Atlantic, we have that next tropical wave. That's the second one that we are most concerned about from other global models, indicating significant explosive intensification with that, possibly as that gets near Florida. Now, the GFS model doesn't show that hitting Florida, of course, in 10 days, and this would be for Sunday morning on the 17th of August here. So we have a long time to go. But this is showing winds here of 98 to 99 miles per hour on this particular model. If we look at previous models, it showed it down here in the Caribbean, and then the model, actually that's the zero Z from last night, but you can see there is a lot of wiggling around with that system that the GFS has in some runs, and it has it in no runs either. So it's back and forth. Now let's take a look here at the European model. And this is, again, this is day 9, okay? Or day 8, sorry. Day 8, 192 hours out for Friday morning, August the 15th. There is that tropical wave that all models are picking up on, with winds that are around 30 miles per hour, right? Yeah, that is 30 miles an hour. But the concern about this one is it could form a little faster. You can see with what our other models are about to pick up on is something a little more significant, with winds here of about 37 to 40 miles per hour. And then look what happens here on the European model. It strengthens at day 10, Sunday morning, on the 17th of August, we have a strong tropical storm here, potentially with winds of about 40 to 50 miles per hour. Now, there is a lot of back and forth whether or not I should go beyond the 10-day forecast. And so until we get more confidence, I'm not going to hold this down very well. But it is worth noting that just because we do have some agreement with some other models, we will go out a little further, but I really want to emphasize, just because I go out further doesn't mean I am cherry picking a model. We are looking at a hurricane or a tropical storm here. There is a lot of uncertainty here in the forecast, okay? So the European model shows a hurricane. Actually, let's go into the Gulf sector because that will actually cover that really well. You can see this is 300 hours out, okay? I want to make it clear here, and I'm going to type this up very big here in this video. I know I'm rambling about this. 300 hours out in time, we are seeing a hurricane here hitting Miami, Florida, if you are in Delray Beach, okay? And please take this with a grain of salt. I do not believe this is going to happen. It is still way too far out in time. Gosh, we're looking at August the 19th here of the evening with a strong tropical storm at least getting close to Florida. All right, and then it would make it cross Florida all the way. So, but again, please take this with a grain of salt. All it takes is one mishap on our initial conditions, and this doesn't end up happening at all. Okay, again, a 0.5% chance this actually is going to end up happening. Now let's take a look at our artificial intelligence model here. We have to move on. And so what we have here, nothing over the next 5 days, but look at that tropical wave right here. Even the Euro's picking up on this. Now the APHIS, the artificial intelligence, has been very consistent on showing that the system is going to exist here. If you don't believe me, let's look at the last 5 model runs. This is the 12Z model run from yesterday. This is the 18Z model from yesterday, like early afternoon. Here's last night's model run, 0Z, overnight model run of 06Z, and now our current model run. Look how consistent that actually has been. So again, we are really going to have to watch this. This is a 40-mile-an-hour tropical storm moving over the northeastern portion of the Caribbean into our Lesser and Greater Antilles region. And then after that, over the 10-day forecast, this tries to strengthen it a little further. And then, of course, our AI model is going a little bullish and indicating a strong tropical storm, if not even a high-end tropical storm approaching the Florida coast. But again, I am not putting a whole lot of time and money and cents into this. Again, this is a very low confidence forecast, all right? Just because you see this nearing Florida doesn't mean it's 100% going to happen, because as you know, these models are prone to changing with time. We can see this on our Canadian model if we move this through really quickly. You can see over the next several days, nothing on the map. And then, of course, as we go further out in time, you can see 10 days right here. Yeah, 10 days on the Canadian, there is your tropical wave, meaning there's a lot of uncertainty that the model is picking up on. If we look at last night's 0Z run, the system was actually over here in the Northern Caribbean. And if we look at the previous run, it was over here. So there is a decent amount of uncertainty in today's update. Now, the last model that I wanted to show you all here is the icon model, okay? So as we put this into motion really quickly here, and so even so, this model is picking up potentially a strong tropical depression with winds of about 30 miles per hour or so. So there is confidence in today's forecast with all 5 models now picking up on this tropical wave. And that's the best confidence we can get for you in this update, okay? And as we go closer and closer in time, when this moves off of Africa, if things still persist, then we will raise the alarm bell for a huge concern that could be potentially in the making in the Atlantic. But I'm not too concerned about it right now for the time being. Now, the upper level environment is very important here because, as you know, tropical systems do not like a whole lot of vertical wind shear. And so we want to reduce that vertical wind shear for a very well stacked vortex where the system could actually thrive within and develop a nice good outflow in the upper levels. You bring in lower level winds inward, and that's how you get a well stacked vortex. So we can see here over the next 8 to 10 days, look at this vertical wind shear. Now, while you do have strong vertical wind shear here to the north, this is outflow. So if you follow the vectors, you're seeing flow like this, okay? And I'm going to draw all of these. So this is outflow-based vertical wind shear over the system, and that's why the Euro shows significant development with this as it moves to the west-northwest, okay? And that continues all the way through. Look at this. There is no vertical wind shear whatsoever. Everything is doing this when it comes to that vertical wind shear. Although you have some very strong vertical wind shear outbound, so this is the outflow channel of 70 knot shear. The system right here is underneath very light shear, generally probably even 5 knots or less. That is a huge concern. And you know how warm this part of the Atlantic is. We're looking at water temperatures in the upper 80s to lower 90s. Now, looking at our deep layer moisture plot here, well, not really deep layer. This is in the upper parts of the atmosphere. Changing things up in today's video. We're not using tropical tidbits for one thing. We'll go back and forth between the websites in each video. You can see the system here is in a fairly moist environment, well removed from where the circulation actually is. There is some dry air here, some dry air here, but it's not being shoved into the system. That is very important because if it's getting shoved in, it's not going to form anything significant. And you can see as this moves into the Bahamas, potentially, look at how symmetrical this actually is. Very, very symmetrical, very classic for a hurricane. And if you thought that was not very organized, let's take a look here. You can see this on a infrared simulated forecast showing us a very symmetrical hurricane here, which again, I do not believe that's going to happen right now until we get more information, more data in from future model runs. All right, please take this with a grain of salt. And the reason why we have to take this with a grain of salt is there is still a lot of decent spread in our European ensemble forecast. We'll be looking at the GEFS ensemble in today's video. And so Ignore this up here. That's part of our system 96L. So it's mainly down in here where we're watching. And you can see the envelope here is still squarely in this type of configuration. So this could, in theory, move into the far northern Caribbean, into the southwestern Atlantic, or simply just be an out to sea storm. But I'll tell you what, if this heads towards Florida, because of how thermodynamically favorable this part of the Atlantic actually is, we could see, it's not a 100% chance, there's a very slim chance this far out, we could see significant development with this tropical wave as it moves off of Africa down the line. Just because it doesn't develop over here or over here or even over here doesn't mean it's going to be weak if it gets over here. If that makes sense. We can already see some strong members here indicating very strong tropical storm, if not low-grade hurricane intensities, like this group of ensemble members here in the Bahamas. So we do have to take this into consideration. Just because, oh, the European ensemble or deterministic has something hitting Miami, the ensembles do not go out that far. And so there is a big amount of uncertainty in such a way that if I could draw a cone of uncertainty, it would cover pretty much this whole entire area right now. That's what we're looking at. Anything from about Bermuda all the way southward into the central and northern Caribbean. Even the GEFS ensemble is highly uncertain exactly where this is going to go, but in general, the GEFS ensemble shows a big cluster of models that do take this out to sea. What I just said does not mean it's going to happen. That's why we need to wait for more solidified model data to come in to prove that. But this is one of those extremes that, okay, most of the ensembles show development here away from many land areas out to sea possible scenario. There's also another group of members over here that show significant development over the northeastern portion of the Caribbean. So again, there's that decent amount of discontinuity between the European ensemble and the GEFS ensemble. And so let's take a look now at our latest European velocity potential anomaly here on the European ensemble forecast. And what we have here is a very favorable environment that will be continuing across much of the Indian Ocean as well as the eastern half of Africa, especially from about the 13th beyond. We have some very, very dark blue and green colors, which indicate lots of rising motion, lots of lift in the atmosphere to get these tropical waves going over Ethiopia, and they will move from Ethiopia through Chad all the way off of Africa, and they could have the potential of developing into something a little more significant, especially as we go into the middle to the latter part of August, which is what I'm concerned about. Now, a lot of people will interpret this and say there's a lot of sinking motion over central portion there of the Atlantic and the Caribbean. This is actually false because there is a disconnection to when the MJO is actually when there's a lot of rising motion over Africa to the time it actually takes for tropical cyclone Janice to actually occur. And where you want it, based on a lot of learning that I've been doing over the last couple of years here, is you want this in the Indian Ocean over Eastern Africa and over the maritime continent at the best favorable setup here to get TC Genesis in the tropical Atlantic. And we can see that this continues all the way into the latter part of August. So we have a very, very favorable period that will even take us even into early September here in time for the peak of hurricane season. So that is why I believe once we get into this period, it's going to be hard to get out of it. Just like last year, it was the opposite. It took us a while to get activity in the Atlantic. I think we're going to have a very busy second half of August all the way into early September. And this on top of very warm sea surface temperatures, especially over the Gulf, the northern and northwestern Caribbean, and the southwestern Atlantic, is pretty alarming on a climatological perspective as well as from a thermodynamic perspective here, because this is where there's the most instability. We don't have a whole lot of dry air out here in the Caribbean as well as in the Gulf and the southwestern Atlantic. And all it takes, folks, is one tropical wave that comes off of Africa, the one that we're going to be seeing in the next few days. It's going to be doing this, and it's going to be moving over some very warm sea surface temperatures. And that's why we really have to watch these really closely. All right. What the European model is showing us in a couple of weeks doesn't mean it's going to actually happen, but we have to keep our eyes open and peeled, as well as keep our ears open as well for the latest updates here on the channel, because as you know, we are going to go into a very favorable, very active period here in the tropics with a big growing threat. And sea surface temperature anomalies here are very warm, as you can see, anywhere between 1 to 2 degrees above normal, especially in the southwestern Atlantic and the Gulf. And that's where we are going to have our tropical waves moving towards. So I am a little concerned about this for sure. So with that being said, if you haven't been here before and you do find these tropical weather outlook and discussions very detailed, informative, helpful, and life-saving, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, folks. It really helps out a lot. We are very close to 50,000 subscribers. Hit that bell notification icon to get all of my daily tropical weather updates here on the channel, including live streaming coverage when a hurricane hits land in the United States within 24 to 36, perhaps even 48 hours, including as well as tropical weather discussions leading up to these type of systems like hurricanes and tropical cyclones. So you can only get that if you do subscribe, share, and like my videos. It really helps out a lot. We are only 975 subscribers away from 50,000. But anyways, that's going to do it with today's tropical weather update. I will be back with you more tomorrow with another update on what is going to be panning out in the tropics.